Sophie and Callum. Sophie will be delivering the reply. And from Bulgaria, we have Kalian, Valentin, and Tanya, and Valentin will be delivering the reply. Before we get the debate started, just a few brief points of order for everyone to know. First, I will be timing, but if we are too busy taking notes to make the necessary sounds, please respect the timing rules of this format. Second, do be reminded that you are supposed to stand up when giving points of information. It especially helps in a large venue like this so that other people can see you delivering a POI. And last of all, though you may of course choose to do so, it is not necessary to count down to your speech. We know your speech begins because you have started talking. If there are no further questions either about the format or about the motion, I would like to invite the first proposition speaker to open this round final.
I am tall enough for this lectern, I was slightly concerned. Okay. Before we start, we would just like to take a moment for a couple of thank yous. First of all, we'd like to extend a huge thanks from the whole competition to everyone who has made it such an incredible experience. Our CAs, the entire CAP, Allcom, the complaints officers, the volunteers, judges, coaches, and team managers. We deeply appreciate your dedication and all your efforts to keep us safe and happy. Your actions to help us deal with the heat have also been greatly appreciated, especially by us unacclimatized Scots. Thank you also to every debater at this competition. Thank you for your hard work, dedication, and thank you above all for your kindness and generosity, which have made this tournament such a joy to participate in. Finally, a few personal thank yous. There are so many people who have volunteered their time to support Scotland in our journey to the final. Thanks go to Natalie, Emma, Tom, Freddie, Zainab, and Owen, most of them former team members who have judged for us, sparred with us, and cheered us on. Thank you also to the high school debate coaches, without whom we wouldn't be here, Mr. McCreth, Mr. McDonald, Mr. McFadgen, and Mrs. Stevens. Of course, there's no way we could have achieved this without our friends and our families. Thank you for bringing us food while we're on our Zoom debates, and understanding when we can't come out because of Sunday morning spars and training sessions. Last, but certainly not least, thank you to our coaches, Jamie, Jordan, and Maxine. We cannot express how grateful we are for you. You have been the most fantastic, funny, caring coaches we could have possibly asked for. Thank you truly from the bottom of our hearts. I should have done that at the start of my speech. I'm going to cry now. Okay. I will, if everyone can hear me, if I put this here, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. If the winners of this round were to be glorified, the rest of the competition would suffer. We cannot stand for the glorification of champions, and we are so proud to propose. Several points of setup then. Firstly, what does glorification look like? It looks like three things. A mass media focus on those who rise to the top of their individual fields. B, an idealization of the individuals who succeed. And C, an inherent demonization of those who lose out. Notice, we do not need to actively tell you that losers are less successful. The very fact that there is created a gulf between those who win and those who fail means that losers feel worse, means that they feel demonized. This looks like prioritizing winners over countries who have crowdfunded and built up their institutions from scratch at this very competition. Second point of setup then, on what the counterfactual is. We think this is A, life without an active glorification, meaning there is more space for us to do things like criticize individuals who have rose to power. But B, it just means that the narrative of hard work prevailing rises up. This is already a narrative that exists. We care about how much hard work people have put in, but in opposition, it is pushed out by the glorification of the individuals who rise to the top. Only by removing this glorification can we create the space for the hard work to be truly recognized.
POI.
We notice that people can still be considered impressive in their respective fields, but what matters here is what you think that success looks like. It isn't just you have won, but rather there is something innate to you as an individual which means that you always deserved to achieve that success. That is what we are opposing. Third point of setup then, what is a champion? We think that A, champions exist in every field. That is to say, we are not just talking about people who rise to the top of the sports industry. We are talking about people who exist in every walk of life. There are champions in debating, there is champions in histocompatibility, champions exist everywhere. But B, champions exist on a certain level of winning. That is to say, someone who wins one competition, one match, they aren't a champion. A champion is someone who is dominant. A champion is someone like the big three in tennis, Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, who win tournament after tournament and achieve widespread success. But C, these people come from certain backgrounds. That is to say, in order to be able to achieve success, a degree of privilege must have followed rationally. You have to have had the privilege to access great education in your youth, or the ability to dedicate a huge amount of time to the pursuit of that particular activity. The lottery of birth is also huge in this capacity. We therefore think champions are never going to be broadly representative of the people of the country. First argument then, on motivation and life experience of non-champions. The thesis of this claim is that glorification creates harmful, internalized views of success which damage each and every one of us. Why does glorification make those who do not achieve champion status sad? 3 reasons here. A, they are sold unrealistic expectations. People tell you that it was all their hard work that got them to that place, not the privilege that they were born with or the ability that they had to gain a mass amount of support. But notice also, many champions just have an incentive to lie to you about why they succeeded. Tom Brady has a vested interest in telling you that he got where he was through his program of supplements, because guess who's selling them to you? Tom Brady. B, encouraging of constant comparison. You are always told that the champions in your respective field are those who have achieved the most success and who are those who are the most happy. This means you are constantly comparing yourself to them, and you feel bad when you are not winning. But most importantly here, it doesn't matter whether you yourself experience happiness, when you always think that the happiness of others is more important. The happiness of those at the top of the competition always exceeds the joy that you are feeling, therefore you never achieve actual satisfaction. But C, on the concealment of harms. Because a focus on champions, a glorification of their success, necessarily means not focusing on the hardships of what has achieved them. What this means is looking at Simone Biles, watching her routine, watching her raise her trophy, but never understanding the years of mental trauma that she suffered as a result of being a participant in that world. This means that when you look at champions, you see only the positives, never understanding the hard work that had to go into this. This is intuitive, panel, because it is just not possible for you to be told every single way in which champions were harmed, every single way in which they suffered, but it is very easy for you to see a shot at them raising the trophy. You will never understand what truly went into these harms. On the comparative, when we focus on hard work, we don't care what the outcome is, we don't care who won, but we platform those who have tried the hardest. We platform those sports people, those politicians, those social heroes who have come from backgrounds where they've been the most marginalized, who have had to put in the most amount of work and effort in order to get to the success that they've achieved. But D here, it just feels isolating. That is to say, when every time I turn on the TV or open a book, see a person who has achieved far more than I ever feel capable of, I feel like I am the only one who experiences this, because I see the champions of the majority, given they are given such a large amount of the press coverage. So I always feel as though I am exclusively the one who feels this way. You are never able to get an environment in which people believe that champions are a minority. It is not presented as so amazing, but is presented as a reflection of your ability and your requirement for these sorts of things. Impacts then, threefold. Firstly, people just feel terrible because you're never able to access success when every chance that you feel to feel happy, to feel content, is always tempered by the idea that someone who has achieved more, someone who on paper is more successful than me, might be feeling happier. You never stop to enjoy what you have, but rather constantly project how your enjoyment could be greater. 2, you just stop trying to achieve. Because when you constantly believe that other people have achieved more and that they have access to exactly the same resources that you do, you feel like a failure when you are not able to ascend to that level. So maybe you just stop trying. Maybe you stop trying to pursue your dream because you think that it's unachievable. Whereas, under our side, when we focus on the hard work, we tell you that even if you fail in meeting the absolute burden of success, what matters more is how much you've enjoyed it, how hard you've tried, and how difficult it was for your journey. Thirdly, though, some groups may just try too hard. That is to say, because they see that success is glorified in this manner, they see it as something which is inherent to their ability to enjoy any form of life. They do things like dope to create better prospects for them in the athletic world. Or they listen to Michael Phelps when he tells you that the only reason he was good at swimming was constant training, not because of the physical advantages that he was born with. This leads you to try over hard, work yourself into the ground, all for no benefit at all. Before I move on to my second argument on abuse of power and accountability, I'll take that point.
I think that anybody who has been to a single competition knows that champions are a minority.
Yes, but who are you sitting watching right now? The people who have risen to the top of that tournament. So even if that is true, that you understand that these people are in the minority, you are constantly focused on what does it feel like to stand up on that stage and give that speech, not focused on your own enjoyment of the competition which you yourself have participated in. Second argument then on the abuse of power and accountability. The thesis of this claim is that champions inherently exist in a world of abuse. Without being able to call them out because of the glorification of their position, we risk endangering people. Why then can we get no accountability under a system of glorification? This is simply because people reject the assumption that this could be true. When your fans are so passionately dedicated to you as an individual that they are willing to bully and harass anyone who speaks out and says that they were abused by you, people just don't want to come forward. People don't feel they're capable of speaking out because of the abuse that they will face. 3 reasons why fans reject accusations. A, they see you as a perfect individual. Do not believe that you have a dark side, but rather believe that everything about you is inherently ideal. B, they point to jealousy. So that is to say, your fans tell you that Harvey Weinstein's victims were simply jealous of his success. That's why they were trying to take him down. They don't tell you that these people actually had anything to gain. But C, the impact of media and companies. That is to say, when someone is a champion, there are many actors who have a vested interest in their success and will always jump to your defense when something like this happens. The people like Alexander Zverev, who are known to have abused their girlfriends, but whom the tennis world will never stop from playing because it's successful for them to keep him in the tournament. These abuse victims are just afraid of the backlash that is created by the fans of these glorified celebrities, and so will never speak out. Why champions are likely to abuse them? A, an inherent desire for self-improvement. We all have, inherently, a desire to take something from someone else. We learn and we treat ourselves to not listen to these tendencies. When opposition tells celebrities and tells champions they are gods, they fall back into these patterns. But B, champions become accustomed to taking things. Winning a match means losing it for somebody else, and that becomes something you're okay with. And C, the interaction with other champions just means that this is something you're okay with. The impact of this is that powerful people get away with abuse. People feel terrible, and marginalized communities are never given the benefit that they deserve. Because glorification harms those who are both present in that glorification and those who are aside from it, we are so proud to propose.
And thank the first opposition speaker to open the case for the opposition. I invite the first opposition speaker to take the floor.
Ajde!
Давай. Да, не бъди чак такъв гън.
Is that something that I should care about?
Oh, sorry, that's mine. You can read out again if you want.
That's fine. I would just say a few words myself too, and then I'm going to rearrange my papers because I think this is important. So, firstly, on collective team thanks, firstly we want to thank Jordan the Mongoose for existing and also being our 3rd biggest supporter on this competition. Then to the organizers and the whole CAP team, this was a tournament that we enjoyed motions quite a lot. Thirdly, to the Bulgarian debating community and association for firstly introducing us to debating, but also providing us this opportunity to actually be here standing in front of you today. Then on to Ratko, telling us how me and Valio should actually dress to actually impress people. Then on Rumen, for being the biggest ganyu that we know and getting impressed by him and motivated. But then on Nikki, who actually did the heroic act of finding us the funds to be here, because otherwise we wouldn't have been here, but also because he was our 2nd biggest supporter. And then on Luka, the Serb, who was our 1st supporter, who actually believed from round 1 that we're going to be here today. Very thankful. But finally, and most importantly, to the best coaches in this room, Velina and Alec, the EUDC champions, please a round of applause for them, because we wouldn't have been here without them due to their 200 hours of voluntary work. Thank you. Okay, now to personal stuff. I want to tell, I promised to say this, I want to thank my beautiful, amazing girlfriend that is hopefully watching me from home. Without her support, I would have been so burnt out right now that I wouldn't have been able to perform like I had. But also, I want to thank my amazing family, my mom, my dad, my grandmother, and my brother Boris, who I love the most. But finally, I want to thank myself for what I have achieved. I'm extremely proud of myself, and I want to say it. And lastly, right now, Team Bulgaria sets a precedent for ESL speakers to actually perform as WSDC. Basically, people believe, because due to hard work and believing, we actually achieved everything that we did. And please believe that even if you're ESL, even if you don't have that much money, because we actually we didn't have the ability to do so almost, we are here today and debating for these cups in front of us. So believe. Okay, just to rearrange these things. Excuse me. So, intro. Okay, this, then these, then this, then this, then okay, this. No. Okay. Let's start this thing for one last time. So, starting the speech. In 3, 2, 1. This is the motion about Team Bulgaria. The team who broke 31st, but due to them believing that there is 1% chance to be here today, we continued to fight and we beat the best of the best, and hopefully today the final 2. Don't take this motivation away from us. Don't trust the lies of prop and oppose this motion today. What you're going to hear in our team line. Firstly on framing and what actually there is a nuance of champions, therefore we're not as radical as prop. Then how people perceive this narrative and how it is actually spread, because they provide zero reasoning as to why it is so toxic. Then on first argument as about motivation and why actually we have only motivation to become champions on our side of the house, and then on national pride and why actually we only have national pride on our side of the house and why it is so important. Then on champions actually spreading their message in second. So, what is a champion? There are 3 different levels of being a champion, which directly engages with their definition. They are national champions who are glorified on a local level and only in the community of the sport. But also we have international champions, which actually are champions of specific regions. Therefore, they're glorified by not only their nation, but also everyone from the region. But thirdly, world champions, the ones who are glorified by the whole world and actually who make the people in the country the proudest. Therefore, the bigger the achievement you have, the bigger the praise. Therefore, there is a spectrum, therefore, no such stuff as they say. Then, on the narrative, how is this narrative spread? The champions are basically posting on social media that people actually publishes afterwards because it has rating due to this narrative being spread, right? But what actually are the incentives of these people? Never proven on their side of the house. How they actually look like? They are extremely hardworking. They actually have done everything. They have determination, work ethics, but also they have self-control, all these good qualities to actually be such a champion. Therefore, they want to spread the virtue of this sport, which actually have taught them all these kinds of stuff. They are kind of important because at the end of the day, if they actually don't say all of these things, their legacy is not going to be spread afterwards. But also, they want to give to the community that actually have helped them backwards, and therefore popularize it in this way, and actually, because they actually want them the best, and therefore they don't want bad rep for it. But also, they don't want bad rep for themselves because they want to spread their messages. We're going to explain later. But they don't want bad rep. They have worked so hard for it. They don't want to lose it. Therefore, people don't want to discourage people from supporting them, as they know that this way their message won't reach the people. Therefore, we have extremely good incentives from these people. This looks like Leo Messi telling people that you should at least give football a try, but also get these qualities. This is what actually is important, and not make it toxic, as they say. Then how actually people perceive it? You want to become a champion, but you understand that this is extremely unlikely, because people actually, are rational. They know that these people are minority. We have only 2 teams out of 68. It's kind of intuitive, dear panel. But also, they don't want the people to feel bad, because after all, if they actually don't want to feel bad, because obviously they actually are going to set low expectations due to them not wanting to suffer in this way. Therefore, we have incentive both from the people who actually spread it, like the celebrities, but also to the people themselves. But also, we stand before you today knowing that we have 1% chance when we actually faced Canada in double octus, dear panel. I know we had low chances. Please understand this. They don't prove anything. On their side, we have no glorification, therefore no courage, no pride to the public, etc. Moving on then to first argument, motivation. We motivate individuals to become champions. Why with them we actually don't people try to become champion in this way? Because we know the possibility is low and we get nothing from it.
Point.
Why? No, because we actually get no reward. Why? On two levels. Firstly, the cup isn't worth anything because you actually get a piece of metal that has no recognition by anyone because no one actually cares whether you're a champion or not. Therefore, becomes a piece of metal. Do you want this to be a piece of metal? No, I want to grab it and I want to hug it in this way. But also, no matter how competitive I am, you actually are not going to experience any value no matter if I have a personal thing to it. Because I get nothing as I am. No one recognizes that I'm better in this way. I am a social creature. When I actually want my superiority, I want people to recognize it. If that wasn't the case, Germany in World War I wouldn't have actually wanted world dominance because they wouldn't have cared about people recognizing them. It's kind of intuitive. Therefore, this is the thing, but also people actually know the possibility is low. Like people know that basically there are a lot of people competing, therefore there is a low probability, but also you know that there are other people who actually have more resources in you, like coaches, money, etc. But also you know that basically there are more people who have had more time to prepare in this sort of way. Therefore, if you fail, you know that you actually, there is a really extremely low probability, but also you get nothing. Therefore, you actually wouldn't even try in this way. Because at the end of the day, this is the important thing. If they want to prove anything, they have to prove irrationality, because I believe people are rational creatures and obviously they don't want to actually feel pain, therefore they're not going to believe any of what actually they said. Then why actually the reward? No, we will outweigh the possibility on our side of the house. Because pride is important on our side of the house. Biologically, we want praise from others because they recognize our praise. This is the important part. But also, I want to feel my country to be proud of me, which actually won't happen because obviously they don't care on their side of the house. But also, I want to spread my message afterwards. Therefore, because everyone has a cause in this way. Therefore, I want to actually have an academy afterwards for the disadvantaged who actually didn't have that many possibilities like me. Therefore, the scale tips on our side of the house and now I actively strive. And notice, if you are a national champion, you want to also strive for more afterwards because there is more to achieve. I am basically semi-national champion, there is the national champion, but we want to be world champions, obviously. Then, impacts. People learn important life skills because they strive to be a champion. Because even if you don't achieve everything you do, determination actually is work ethics, how to lose, teamwork, persuasion like I'm doing right now. But why is this so important? Because you lose this afterwards in your life because you actually don't get depressed when your girlfriend removes you because, I don't know, you actually know how to get past it, but also you know actually how to work better, therefore might actually get a promotion on my side of the house. But also better teamwork, therefore actually I'm a more valuable person in the company. The second thing is more people find my passion because I want to be a champion. Therefore, if I don't succeed in something, I'll try in something else. Therefore, I can actually get this in sort of way and actually get what I'm actually passionate about. But thirdly, champions feel praised if they actually succeed. Therefore, I feel amazing due to all the explanations as to why people actually want to be recognized in this sort of way. Then, moving on to national pride. Why actually this actually exists? Because people don't learn on our side of the house. We have publicity, we have people, fans, etc. But why actually we feel pride? Because look how nations actually are inspired by us. We are the 31st team breaking, and everyone in the room knows this, and they actually believe that this is possible next year, for example. But you wouldn't feel pride on their side of the house because I get the superiority thing, because actually no one acknowledges it, and I'm a social creature, therefore no one cares. The impacts are important because I get pride. Imagine the thing that will happen in Bulgaria community when they actually acknowledges it. The media will go crazy, I believe. But also, they actually care about our state more in this sort of way and we actually become football champions, for instance. Because we actually now start to believe that our country has some hope in it in this way. We actually know that this is possible because we actually have hope. We actually have something that we are best at. But thirdly, I simply want to spread my messages are going to be spread far more easily because at the end of the day I will follow something that actually people tell me to do, actually who are the champions, because at the end of the day they are good people, they have given me this good emotion and therefore I should go with them. Let me tell you, panel, what we did before getting into this room. We sang songs about our national heroes and champions. This is why we are basically the only team who has the heart and the soul to win this final. Please, oppose!
Okay, can everyone hear me? Great. Thanks, everyone. That's going to be all my preamble. Okay, let's get going. Okay, we'll start in 3, 2, 1. It is absolutely true that it is incredibly rare to have Scotland, a small nation, face Bulgaria, another small nation, in the final. And that perfectly, panel, illustrates the problem, is that 9 times out of 10, it is the best funded teams who have the most advantages that land in the final, who land with the championship. And every time that happens, they get more media attention, more sponsorships flock in, they are interviewed 10 times more than their smaller counterparts. It is exactly this structure that has created the rarity that Bulgaria is so proud of. We are very proud to propose on Scotland. A couple of themes in this round. I'm going to look at what it looks like for everyone within the competition, clashing Mia's first argument with their argument about motivation. Then I'm going to look at what champions look like and why we think they abuse their power rather than create pride. But firstly, let's deal with their challenges to our setup. Firstly, I think they use their setup of different levels of champion as their main response to Mia's first argument, which is to say that people don't care because they know there are different levels of champions which they're able to succeed. 2 responses to this. Firstly, the reason we frame this in the way that we do is we see a distinction between champions and winners, which is to say you can win a competition, but champion is necessarily a level above that. That's why it demands the accolades, like winning consistency or winning on a higher level. But second, even if we accept that to be true, we think that the glorification of champion grows with the size as they themselves accept, which means that when you become a local champion, your focus immediately switches to being a national champion, because that's probably the next level on which you compete, which means that no matter where you are in the spectrum, you're always striving upwards unless you're that international champion, because the glorification grows exponentially in those scenarios, which means that there still exist the types of comparison that they talk about, even if we take them charitably and say there are different frames of champions. The second response then that they use in their setup is, guys, don't worry, people are really rational, they understand that there is a minority, and what this means is that people don't get worried about becoming it. A couple of responses to this. Firstly, it is in fact the rarity that makes it so coveted and what people strive for. It is the fact that only one team is left standing, which makes it something which is exciting to you because it lacks attainability. So you see that rarity, and rather than thinking I might not be able to achieve it, wouldn't it be so fantastic if it did? Because wouldn't I feel so amazing, get so much love from other people? Because there is always the chance that you could be that person who breaks through, and that's what makes you strive in those scenarios. But secondly, there is just a lack of understanding that you are in the minority, because look at the media, they're publicizing champions everywhere as they rise up, all surrounded by you. You see interviews with the people who just won a Grand Slam or just won a tournament, and what that means is you believe that this is a higher prevalence thing than happens. They sell you their stories of how it happened. You think they sound kind of like me, that could be me, because you don't discuss with the losers because they're like crying in their hotel room or whatever, and the champions are out gloating, which self-selects you to believe that being a champion is more attainable than it actually is. Their other point to set up then is to try and frame out our second argument by talking about the incentives of champions. They tell you that they spread the virtue of their hard work. Firstly, they never explain why the uniquely champions work hard and why this matters, which is to say, we tell you that everyone else has worked just as hard as both of us in this competition here. And in fact, there are other teams who probably worked harder because they weren't lucky enough to have a Scottish debate institution set up by our wonderful coaches. And what that means is here, it's actually the champions do what Mia tells you, which is say that it was hard work rather than excluding the factors that helped them to get there, because they want to maximize their own glorification, maximize the extent to which people are impressed by them. But secondly, champions only glorify their own type of hard work, which is to say, in order to say that they have a unique secret to sell to you or to make them impressive and unique in media, they often tell you they had a unique training regimen to what everyone else had. They only sell you one scenario of hard work, and often that hard work is about like graft, and if you throw up in your training, it's totally fine, you're not working hard enough. And those narratives of graft we think are actively damaging because they fall into the things that Mia talks about, like encouraging people to overwork to the point they actively harm themselves. What we think this means is these points of framing don't directly engage enough with Mia's analysis and don't stand. I think what that means is, given we've taken away this response about understanding why people are in the minority, Mia's first argument still stands, which is you continue to have those unrealistic expectations and constant comparisons. And the reason this matters so much in the round panel is just on scale, which is 99.9% of people in whatever field they are not champions or never feel that they're champions enough, which is to say the vast majority of people are harmed by this argument in a multitude multitude of ways, that they constantly feel psychologically awful, that they lack self-esteem, so they don't enjoy the process. So even if they learn all these team-building skills that they talk about, if they hate themselves while they do it, then we don't see it as inherently valuable to them. Secondly, people just stop trying and quit, and they don't engage this materially. I'll clash this with motivation momentarily. Or that you try too hard so much that you damage yourself. That things like doping become because people are willing to sacrifice themselves for winning, which we think is actively harmful, because 9 times out of 10, it won't work and you'll be left bloodied and broken. Let's then deal with their motivation point, because I think this is the most direct clash that they try and offer to this argument. They tell you a couple of things about motivation. They tell you that if I don't see anything, I'm unlikely to work hard, because I want that level of national pride, I want that level of acclaim in order to do it. Firstly, just because we don't glorify champions doesn't mean that there isn't a reward for winning, i.e. you might see a reward in being in the best debate in the competition because you like debating so much, or you could still get a cash prize for winning because it's not about rewarding winners a bit, but rather the extensive glorification. So maybe you still want to win the money to earn back what you spent on your training. There are still those financial incentives. But secondly, most people are just still going to participate, because I hate the characterization that people only participate because they want to win, which is to say we think participation is made toxic by the desire to win, but the desire to participate existed before that. So people participate in sport and they start playing football because they love playing it with their friends, and we think that love is something that's a positive motivator. But when you glorify champions, that's when it toxicifies and we get the people dropping out. This looks like Carlos Alcaraz in tennis, who always tells you that the reason he plays is because he loves the sport. And in fact, we would flip and say these people tend to be more successful. If you join the competition solely because you want to win, that's a toxic mentality of idolizing one person, always trying to be like them all the time, of hating yourself for not being as good as them when you fail. And those people toxify the competition because they're more likely to do things like cheat or try and psych out their opponents because they want to win so badly. But so what that means is the delta here, if you believe there is any panel, is removing toxic competitors onto our side, of improving the integrity of the sport, because we keep only the people who are positively motivated. Because there's no inherent value to having more people if you think those people are really damaging to everyone else there. But finally then, I want to deal with their implicit claim here, which is it's really nice for champions under their side of the house. A couple of responses to why this is true, because I think this deals with part of this case and part of the national pride. One, it probably just never feels as good as you hoped it would feel, which is to say on the outside it looks golden and shiny and you only see these people smiling in photographs, and probably that elation when you lift the trophy just doesn't live up to your hyper-imaginative expectations, because you've been waiting for that for 10 years. So if you don't feel immense elation suddenly, then it just wasn't seen as worth it for you. Before I move on, I'll take that.
If you take this cup right there, wouldn't you feel amazing? Don't lie, please.
I think I'd feel pretty good, but I don't think I'd feel good if I'd spent all night last night prepping and sweating for this, or I'd spent all night trying to poison Bulgaria's tea because I didn't want them to win. I think I'd feel pretty bad, right? It would feel good, but what feels better is the friends I made along the way, and that's genuinely true. But secondly, even if you're a champion who feels happy, there is just the terror of falling from grace, which is to say, again, imposter syndrome, because all the media characterizations I see of me are immensely positive. So the moments where I feel angry or bad about myself, I realize I'm letting my fans down, and that leads me to hide the parts of myself that Mia talks about that are incredibly damaging. And what that means is it opens up to Mia's second argument, which is to say, when only these positive characterizations arise to the top, that's when the abuses of power get entrenched. Because apart from saying athletes have good incentives to work hard, they don't engage with that material. They have an incentive to look good, and that's very different to not acting badly. We've given you the mechanization as to why they are able to get away from acting badly. Where when they're in those positions where they know they can act worse, when you're an actor who can abuse a runner on set and no one will call you out for it, you likely do it because the media will always land in your favor. So all of that analysis means that even if you think champions might feel good for 10 minutes, they likely worsen the sport. They use their power to top-down entrench a hierarchical system that will just push more people out. Panel, it is genuinely about the friends you made along the way, and even if we win this, we're much happier that we're here with you guys than we lift the trophy. Thank you.
So we don't make friends.
Okay,
Ако ще говориш за някакви тенкс, кажи сега.
Just to thank a few people before I start on a personal level. I'm kind of forced to do this, by the way, but it's fine. Firstly, want to thank my family, have been supporting me throughout the way. Secondly, want to thank Alex Selvelev specifically because he believed in me from 8th grade. Thirdly, I want to thank my teammate on the national competition, Lubomira, because I forgot to thank her on the Bulgarian radio and she got mad at me. Great. Then let's start with the speech on my next word. Panel, if I believe there is a 1% chance to get $1 million, I will try hard to get it. But I will not be disappointed when I don't get it because I realize it's a 1% chance. This is the nuance side opposition tells you and side proposition never engages with. Right. 4 questions in this speech. Firstly, on will people feel sad? Secondly, on how this narrative looks like and all the scams that come in the frame. Thirdly, the toxic competition. And fourthly, are champions good or bad? Let's firstly start with will people be sad. Firstly, they explain, oh, poor people have no ability to succeed. Panel, we don't care about that. It's about them trying, which will lead to getting all the positive qualities that will help them later on in life. We don't care if people succeed, and we understand reality that most people will not succeed, unlike the side of proposition. But secondly, panel, look at your notes. They never prove why money is important for you to succeed. Never ever do this. It's their burden to do it in third speech. Also, if you try enough, you can get sponsors. This is one more reason than they have given, right? Then let's continue with their claim on people who will be sad later. Here they say they will be sad because they're not the champion and get disappointed and all this sort of way. Panel, you know one person will win. This is how competition works. They tell you, you're in the minority because you see people all over media. Panel, do I believe more what I see here in this room or what I see over media? Normal people know media tends to be manipulated sometimes because they have been through fake news, because they have been exposed fake news. I believe much more my eyes that see directly rather than the news, dear panel. But secondly, notice, also due to the glorification, you know everyone is trying their hardest, and this is a unique reason. People will not be disappointed on our side because they know that everyone wants this glorification, which means that everyone works the hardest, which means that even if I work the hardest, this doesn't mean I will necessarily win. And this is what people realize. But once again, back to the 1 million example, I will still try my hardest, even though I know there is a 1% chance to succeed. Great. Then thirdly, what is the comparative here? Even if you feel sad and afterwards you have tried your hardest and quit, this is taking their best case, quitting and feeling sad. Our impact is better and more important because we stop them from experiencing future failure as much. When you learn determination, when you learn discipline, this means, for instance, you will try more for your job interview. You will not care that you are tired, but you will want to get this job and will get this job, and this will not be your failure. But secondly, notice, when you fail, you would not take it as hard as my first speaker explains, because you are now more used to it, because you have seen that you have failed this time in this sort of particular way. So notice, our impact is much more important because they talk about being sad for one failure or one competition. We say we prevent many other failures that will make you sad in the future that people would have made on their side of the house. So to the extent at which we prove this, we make people less sad because these people, because more failures will make you sad for a longer period of time, while this one failure will make you sad for a specific period of time that is now. So if we want to take their metric, which we are not saying we are doing, we win. And they give the scam comparative, we impact more people, we impact the same group of people. This is not a real comparative. I've just explained why we impact them on a bigger scale. So our comparative is the one that should be taken, right? Then let's continue to the narrative. They say a few things here. Firstly, they say the alternative narrative is to work hard. Notice, these narratives are not mutually exclusive. You even say it. Champions tell you how hard work is important because the incentive is to want to impress you in this sort of particular way. Or for themselves to not admit this, you admit it. So they say this is the narrative, and then later in their speech they admit these narratives are not, mutually exclusive. This is not something you should take in the debate. They are not mutually exclusive. But secondly, they say, you compare, then they say champions stop trying and all this. People are unlikely to stop trying, panel, because champions don't tell you to stop trying, because they want you to succeed. They relate to you. They have debated the same rounds that you have debated. They have also lost rounds at debating. They have empathy for you, so they don't want you to quit because they have faced the same challenges and won't lie to you in the face in this sort of particular way. Right. Then let's sure, POI, if anybody has any.
People will never try hard when they have been so demotivated by a culture which tells them that their happiness is nothing compared to that of the champions. Your side is not one of encouragement, it's one that tells people they are never good enough.
Here is the thing, it's the motivation that you could become champion. I have explained this a million times. Let's continue to the, how do you say, the toxic competition part, right? They tell us this competition will become toxic. I have a few responses to this. Firstly, panel people will now, okay, firstly I want to say I believe that people should use every legal tactic when they're doing something. They never explain why this is something bad. I believe that this is what makes sports interesting, when you can implement everything you could implement for you to win in this sort of particular way. Otherwise, nobody will be watching sport, because there will be some people doing things as a hobby, just running around and doing random things. Who wants to watch this? Nobody. Then in this sort of particular way, this is what makes sports interesting. This is what makes people enjoy sports. We believe that this is the reality of the things, right? Now let's continue to champions. Are they good or bad? Firstly, they say there is nobody to hold them accountable. I want to say that this should not be taken into account if they don't explain that they have bad incentives, because I don't care if somebody can hold you accountable if you don't have bad incentives. But secondly, people, there are more than one champion. You could get called out by the previous international champion, right? And this person has the incentive to do this because he loves the game and doesn't want you to see how you scam other people who play the same game as you, because he empathizes with these people, because he has been in their same position. So the previous champion can call you out and he has the same glorification. So at that point, people will make the best possible decision and decide whether you truly beat your wife, whether you're truly a scammer, whether you truly do this sort of particular things, because the glorification counterbalances the other person is also glorified in this sort of particular way. Right. But then, let's continue to our last argument on how these people motivate you to do good things. Firstly, I want to say, I won't prove that people listen to him because they've kind of already proved this. I will simply prove the good incentives of this person. Notice how, firstly, he doesn't want to damage his reputation by saying problematic things. Here they say, but there is nobody to hold him accountable. Panel, he doesn't realize that. Right, you know that somebody could call you out. It's about perception. You don't want to risk this thing just to say something problematic in this sort of particular way, or to sell a fake course when you can sell a real course that actually helps people. You don't want to take the risk of somebody denying your reputation just because you want to sell a scam course, because your reputation is what you rely on. This is your fans. This is the people who buy tickets for your games. This is your income. You don't want to risk this. But secondly, most probably he believes in good things. He believes in helping the poor, for instance, or he wants to be portrayed as somebody who believes it's good for helping the poor because it's good for his reputation. What are the impacts of this? Notice, panel, this means more people are likely to get motivated by this person because they want to be exactly like him. This means more people are likely to go ahead and donate to charity because this person has reminded him of this and they want to be specifically like this person. Panel, if you want people to influence other people in a good way, and if you believe that this is a world in which champions are valued and should be valued, vote for us.
I thank the second opposition speaker to close the substantive case for the proposition. I have the third opposition speaker to take the floor.
Can the panel hear me if I talk like this? I will speak louder, don't worry.
Taking their best case.
The motivation of individuals is not what matters in this debate. What matters is those who are glorified as champions abuse that position. They use their influence to damage others. They use their power to hold a grip on the field in which they live. This looks like the ANC using the name of Nelson Mandela to justify the corruption and the continuous blackouts. This looks like in Myanmar, Sang EC using the name of her father to justify the damage and corruption and genocide that she carried out. From the framing we gave you in first, this was not just about sports champions, but about all champions, political or not. The harms of this are far greater than anything opposition can propose. That is why we win. Let's look at three clashes. First of all, on the characterization of this narrative. Second of all, on the abuse of power. And third of all, on motivation. First of all, on the characterization of this narrative. Opposition tell you this narrative is inherently going to be spread well for two reasons. One, that it is done by athletes, and second of all, that those athletes have good incentives. Let's dispute each of them. One, that this is done by athletes, because they never prove that athletes are the one to spread this narrative. They simply assert it. Two things. One, I just think consumerist, capitalists, businesses have more capital than athletes to spread this narrative. This looks like co-opting an athlete's name and saying if you buy our product, you're automatically, no thank you, going to become as good as them. They have more capital, expertise, and spread in the world to use this narrative and use the athlete's name for harm. But second of all, even if it is the athlete that is spreading it, I just think they are constrained. Because if you go on a TV show, you're constrained by the type of questions that the media ask you. If you're posting on social media, you have social media managers that manage your reputation, that constrain what you can post. So if our incentives about these groups are true, even if it's athletes that are spreading it, they are still constrained and therefore to spread negatively. Secondly, even if it is athletes that spread it, we dispute the fact that they have good incentives. They give you two reasons why athletes are inherently going to spread this narrative well. A, they tell you it is for their legacy, and B, they tell you they want to give back to the community. On A, for their legacy. What would you rather, panel? Would you rather people seeing you as godlike, as absolutely amazing, because it is only the gods that stay in history, it is only the gods that are remembered, or would you want people to see you as flawed, as insufficient, as not as amazing as you're glorified? You would much rather the one on the gods. Therefore, you're not going to talk about your challenges, you're not going to be talking about your flaws, because you do not want people to see you in that way. B, on giving back to your community. I think the best way to give back to your community internally, you think, is to emphasize your success. It is not to go on media and say, here are all the barriers that you face. You're never going to get that success. It was very rare that I did it. It was to emphasize the success in the first place. It was to tell them it was possible. That inherently means not focusing on the flaws, but focusing on your success. Therefore, all our narrative characterization is true. They give you a pushback in on O2 that the counterfactual is not hard work because it's not mutually exclusive. But yes, it is, because the people spreading these narratives, athletes, media, businesses, all have a trade-off to make. They all have a limited amount of time and resources. Do you focus on the hard work and the process, or do you focus on the successes and the outcome? Therefore, since there's a trade-off, we see the counterfactual is on the hard work that is not mutually exclusive. What this means is all their main pushes to our case on motivation fall out of the debate, but when we get onto that clash, we'll be uber charitable, no thank you, and say even if their characterization is true, how we still win. On the second clash then, on the abuse of power, no thank you. Their second argument on national pride, which is pretty underanalyzed, but even if we accept it as true, simply feeds into this. Because we tell you when there is greater national pride and support for an athlete that goes beyond rationality and is something intense, that grows from nationalism, that is when you get a lack of accountability. That is when fans fail to call you out because they believe you are standing for your country, because they do not want to lose that nationalism. Their argument fed into ours. What did we tell you? We told you that champions are unable to be held to account for two reasons. A, they are painted as perfect, and B, any attempts to the counter is seen as jealousy because everything is a competitive environment. They tell you that, oh, you're going to be called out by the previous champion. Two problems. One, if our analysis is true for one champion, it is true for a majority of champions. Therefore, they never explain why the previous champion is likely to not have participated in the same scandal, why the previous successor is not also likely to have done that doping. Therefore, they don't want to call you out because that implicates themselves. But second of all, it doesn't respond to the analysis, because we tell you why even if there is a call-out, that call-out doesn't reach the fans, that call-out doesn't damage that person's popularity and their platform, that still exists even if there is a call-out. The second thing we tell you is it's incredibly likely that athletes are going to participate in these scandals and to participate in this abuse of power. They give you two responses. First of all, they simply assert that there is no bad incentive. Two problems. One, not responsive, this is assertive. But second of all, it simply proves that there's a greater likelihood under our side of the house. We tell you that every single human has innate desires, every single human has some negative feelings inside of them. We tell you when you give athletes the opportunity to exercise this with their power, with their influence, with the capital that they now have, they're more likely to do it. We still win on likelihood. Secondly, they tell you that athletes don't want to damage their reputation. Again, it wasn't responsive, because we tell you the fans are going to support them either way. There's a mob mentality. You inherently believe that your athlete, that your parent, the politician, is perfect, is godlike, that they can never be wrong. So even if someone is telling you to the contrary, you're never going to believe them. The impact of this was clear. There's going to be more scandals such as sexual abuse. But also in politics, this is incredibly damaging. It means that the corrupt past clings onto power. It means that democracy is never allowed to flourish. The impact of this is far worse than motivation. In their second, they tell you, at worst, they say, oh, people get more skills. I think the impact of this clash is far more important than that. Let's go on to motivation and win on their only path to victory. So even if we, at worst, watch this out, we still win this debate. They tell you they're likely to get more motivation under their side of the house. Few problems with this. First of all, Sophie tells you the reason you're motivated to participate in sports is not because of winning, but it's because you care about it. Because you have a passion for that sport. No, thank you. It was never about winning. Secondly, she tells you it is unlikely to feel good under their side of the house when you win because A, it is incredibly hollow. At the point at which it is glorified, the actual success is never going to live up to that glorified, unrealistic image. But B, I want to add on to this, there's likely to be a vast amount of pressure. It is never going to be able to the success is never going to be able to overtake. If you have to work every single night until very late at night, if you feel like any time you make a mistake, you're letting many people down, success is never enough. But third of all, they tell you pride.
Last chance.
No, thank you. They tell you pride and we are inherently social creatures. But we tell you can still get recognition from those around you. Your family and friends are still going to be proud of you no matter what. That was not the glorification of champions. We tell you that recognition and success and applause from your family and friends was actually more important because those are the ones around you, those are the ones you care about, those are the ones you interact with more. At that point, I don't care if the rest of the world sees me, I only care about those around them. Let's move on to our case. We tell you why they're likely to decrease motivation under their side of the house. Sophie's already dealt with their only response when they tell you, oh, there are different levels of athlete. The impact of this was pretty clear. One, you simply feel terrible on the inside, but second of all, you're either going to simply stop participating in that sport or activity, or you're going to try too much. They tell you you're unlikely to stop. That is fine. I'm fine with the second impact on burnout and trying too much. Because we tell you that is what is most important in this clash. If you're burnt out, you're never able to get these skills they say, because you are trying to you have to take time off that sport or activity to focus on your mental health, or because you become physically unwell because you have pushed yourself into the ground. Burnout was the most important thing in the motivation class. Their arguments can be true, but we push it to the point at which it is harmful. They never explain why people stop working when it becomes too much, at the point at which their whole analysis was predicated on people working hard. At that point, we are best for the champions, we were also best for society, who were held under their oppressive grip, so proud to propose.
Ганю ми лафаше, че компания го таковат. Ганю ми лафаше, че компания изпредват негатив. Те как се да тях минути? Под glorified се разбира, че вярващите. Да, това го обясних, стига глупости.
Okay.
Before starting this speech, I would like to thank again my family, everyone in the Bulgarian Debate Association, and everyone who's watching and hyping us up right now. Recognition. This is the thing that our team opposition is striving for. This is the thing that we characterize as the core incentive and the core motivating factor, as the catalyst that makes you want to strive to be great, that makes you want to strive to actually perceive the thing that you're doing, not just do it as a hobby. Few things in this speech. First of all, direct engagement with the mischaracterization on Prob's behalf, and secondly, on the clash of how people get accountability and why we should win this debate. Panel, this is a motion about a narrative. Something that they failed to explain in all of their speeches, except for maybe some late framing in third, is that in order to prove an argument why people will perceive it in a toxic way, you need to prove two things. First, you need to prove why the actor that is spreading this narrative has an incentive to display it in a toxic manner. And secondly, why the people that are going to perceive this narrative, meaning the general public, is going to see it in a negative way. Why is this so important? This means that after explain why our original framing is enough to defeat theirs but also rebut their reasons, means that they cannot access their mechanization and their first argument, which is all about you only see the good things, they lie to you that it is only hard work, you glorify this person, you don't see anything because you have unrealistic expectations. First of all, on how people will perceive it, even if it's spread in an extremely terrible way. Why won't you blame yourself for not being Ronaldo? Notice, you know that there is a million different factors that contribute to his success. Even if he doesn't go out of his way to say, hey, I pay $1 million, for example, for insurance for my health, and I have private massages every 2 hours, you know that this is probably the case because you know that in life, in every single other aspect of life, people have privileged. And this is isolated, this is not isolated from the motion. This motion is not happening in a bubble where this is the only narrative that exists. For example, even if this narrative doesn't exist, you know that the rich kid in your class has better grades because it can pay for private lessons. You know that the guy in your work is more likely to get that promotion because he has better connections, because he has a Harvard degree and you don't. You see this sort of competition and this sort of unfairness in all aspects of your life. So what does this mean? This means that when you see Ronaldo, you don't expect to be like him because you have this reality check in your head, because you're an actual human being and not an idiot. So you don't expect this from yourself. But also, too, if he doesn't expose himself, there are other actors that are likely to expose his privilege. And for example, if he's using steroids. This is the case because yes, he wants to make himself look good, but there are other actors that want to make him seem bad, like the opposing team. They're likely to try to undermine him and say, no, he's only successful because he has this money, because he has these other things that people can't have. And what we believe on our side of the house is actually that the publicity that you get uniquely with glorification allows you to have a scene to expose this sort of people. And this is actually the precise reason as to why these people won't be scandalous, these people won't abuse their girlfriends, these people won't try to cheat in a competition, because now their reputation matters much more. Now they're a public figure on our side of the house. Now they have to be careful what they do. It's not about, me being good at the sport and this being enough for me to win and to get the rewards. This is not enough. We have more accountability on our side of the house. This ultimately destroys their second argument, but I'll engage more with it later. But also, why would this not be displayed in a bad manner? The only characterization that we hear from them comes in third. I believe that this is pretty late for framing, so I'll just give rebuttal to that. Why does the later? Why does this athlete have an incentive to say, for example, that he came for a privileged actor, or emphasize on the difficulties and the hardships that he had in order to get there? He wants to make his achievement mean more. Sure, the other side can say you hide bad things because you want to look good, but this doesn't mean anything. I believe that what looks good is a hero story. It's a story of a person that came from nothing and is actually a hero now. And why is this the case? Because the more difficult it was to get there, the more impressive it is, the more rare the occasion is that Bulgaria is speaking on a WSDC final, the more value people find in it, because it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So this means that this person is trying to emphasize it because this is what looks good, not just them, I don't want to look bad. But secondly, we believe that these athletes have an incentive to look relatable. Sure, if they only want to sell t-shirts, we believe that the way to do this is to look relatable, and by doing so, showing showing the hardships that you have, making yourself look human so people like you and engage with you more. This is the reason why even the Jenners are doing publicity stunts, shopping to seem more human-like in order for their businesses to continue to strive and their careers to continue. But see, we explain personal incentives of these athletes and to spread the message, their purpose in life. For example, this messaging like determination is their faith that literally saved their lives and kept them going in times when it was difficult. But even if you don't buy any of these things, these people don't want to be hated. No matter how terrible of a person you are, you want to portray yourself as an understanding and good person, because when people feel bad while watching your interview, they're probably not going to buy your t-shirt, they're probably not going to support you. But also, even if that's not the case, the media, it's not going to allow you to present yourself in a terrible way because they also care about the content of the footage that is being presented. POI.
Ronaldo has a literal monetary incentive to tell you that his success comes from his Nike boots, which he is being paid to advertise. Champions have no incentive to tell you that the reasons for their success are multifaceted. They have an incentive to lie.
Dear panel, I believe you're not an idiot. If Ronaldo tells you that he's only good at soccer due to his sneakers, I don't think you're going to trust him. They never explain such things. Again, this narrative doesn't exist in a bubble. There are a million other narratives. People are not idiots. But I want to call out a contradiction in their team line sort of case. They say people don't tell you to work hard, they just tell you to be a champion on opposition side of the house. But also, these athletes lie to you that it is hard work. We believe that even under this premise, which we do not concede to, people again believe that hard work is the way. In the end, they continue to push, which is again enough of a motivator on our side of the house. So when the most important clash in this debate is how do people that are not champions feel, we believe that we are able to win in this clash simply because the mechanization that they offer is that people blame themselves and then give a bunch of illustrations. We say, no, these people want to internally perceive this way. We also offer you external factors that contribute to the way that people perceive this. We tell you why you're going to be able to connect with your community more in our second argument about nationalism. We also provide you with practical help that you're going to have as an athlete under our side of the house. For example, charities that give you the ability to do sport, that give you the precondition to be great. But even if you don't buy into any of that, we tell you you have the ability to learn how to lose, which will either transition into you trying another thing and you being semi-good at it, or maybe just learning how to deal with life, because life is difficult, because at the end of the day, we are the ones that make people feel good, and they can say you still have rewards, but if this was enough, the motion is symmetric, people will be jealous of the monetary price, people will be jealous of the cup itself. So again, this is a mitigation of the motion, not of team opposition. So dear panel, if you believe that opposition is the side in this debate that defends champions, that defends how people feel, that is able to carefully and analytically analyze how people perceive this narrative, how people are willing to interact with it, you should vote for a very easy opposition today.
Shower. By the way, can our fourth speaker just have the floor to say her thanks, because actually it doesn't have this.
No. Come on. Okay. We're not in Bulgaria, Kotev. Come on. I will start on my next word. Panel, I know we can all decide this on emotions, on who speaks the fancier language, on who can say the more complex words, but the truth is we should decide this on who has proven more, on who has had the better comparatives, and who has been more responsive, which we have most probably been in this debate. This is why you should vote for Team Bulgaria. Let's begin with the three questions in this speech. Firstly, are champions good or bad? Notice, we say in third speech, when someone is glorified, we hold him even more accountable. But in second speech, it comes that people are not morons. They are most probably going to learn that Messi's abilities are not because of his shoes, because, I don't know, maybe somebody will put on these shoes and see that he doesn't instantaneously become Messi. Or you just no common logic. This is also a variant, you know. But then, what are the clear comparatives? I'm going to take them at their best. Panel, notice, we give reasons why some champions have good incentives, want to help the sport, believe that abuse is bad. I know this is a very scandalous statement. They give some reasons why champions have bad incentives. Actually, one reason, to get money, but sure, yes. Now, what is the comparative here? We believe in taking this charitably. Both of these incentives exist in people's minds. So this should come to the comparative on which incentive is more important, specifically for champions. Notice, champions already have money. They sell tickets, they get some sponsors to have their t-shirt on their name, they sell some merch on their t-shirts, they already have money. They don't need to sell shady things. Notice, they don't want to sell their soul for a bit more money. You already have some money, but when you're selling your soul, we feel bad every second. We believe this is a weighing no athlete will ever take because money is something you already have. What are you going to do? Buy a newer Lamborghini? We don't care for this. We care for you not feeling consciously bad because you've betrayed your sport. This is the comparative in the heads of the athletes. But secondly, even if we take the case that some athletes prioritize one, some athletes prioritize other, even though I've just proven the opposite of this, notice the ones with good incentives will call out the champions with bad incentives, which means that having this in mind, people will get to decide on their own without considering rep of champions or glorification of champions, which person is saying the most logical thing. Because both champions with good and bad incentives go against each other, because the good champion, as I explained in second speech, has the incentive to help the sport and not let fans get scammed. So this is why side opposition definitively wins on this clash point. But I don't believe this is the most important clash point, panel. Why? Because we don't know who will listen to who. Maybe the glorification is super intense, they will listen, maybe it's not. Notice what is the most important clash is what will people do due to the narrative existing, because it's one step prior. It's due to the narrative, not what will champions say due to the narrative, right? So it's more likely. And here we win by a landslide, panel. We explained the comparative in second speech. They had third speech to engage with it. They didn't engage with it. But also, we give analysis as to why this is important and refute everything they say. We explain people are rational. Then they just say, oh, I will do it due to the competition. Panel, we say in third and second, you can just do it as a hobby. You won't learn determination that way. You won't learn failure that way. You won't learn anything that way. And competitions are pretty bad experience if you don't believe you have a chance to win. You just waste your time. At that point, better go to a restaurant, hang out with friends, enjoy life. This is why we compete. This is why you should vote for opposition.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I now feel really bad that I didn't thank my family, so thanks guys if you're watching, I do love you. Okay, let's start in 3, 2, 1. Let's take a look outside opposition's world. Because I think if their claims are true, or we buy them to an extent, it only strengthens our argument. Because if it's true that the primary motivation to keep striving forward is that you want to be a champion, how awful does it feel every time you fall at the final hurdle? If you break, but you fall in that first out round, if you get through, but you get knocked out in the quarters, every failure is particularly poignant, reminds you that you can't be the idol who you see in every sports newspaper, every interview that you open up. A couple of themes in this speech. Firstly, let's talk about the framing we gave you from first and why this matters. Firstly, we explained to you that what glorification tends to look like is immense media focus, is fan idolization on things like social media. And this mattered because what we characterized glorification was it majority about how people reacted to winners. Not what winners themselves said, but the culture that was created around them. And that was framed from first. But additionally, we told you that losers are perceived as lesser because this gulf is opened up. This isn't just about winning being nice, but seeing champions as godlike deities that walk among humans, and people who don't get that just as less than by nature of comparison. Secondly, we told you that the counterfactual was twofold. That A, it was a simple absence of this narrative, but B, this allowed other existing narratives to rise up like that of hard work. Notice, they never actually explained a realistic counterfactual in this round, only asserted that there was a problem with theirs. They said these narratives aren't mutually exclusive, but this is exactly what we told you in first. There is a narrative that hard work is good, but it's eclipsed by being a champion under the status quo. So hard work only matters insofar as it got you the win. The hard work of a champion is good, while the hard work of a loser isn't something I should learn from because it didn't get me to where I need to be. So what that means is this is able to rise up. And the strategic importance of this in the round panel is if you care about platforming people who are unlikely to win, you ought glorify the people who likely worked hardest, who didn't exist with those same advantages. Because we told you that 9 times out of 10, champions are the people you think they're going to be. The people who had money for education, extensive training, who had pre-existing political connections, who started at a young age, who had financial fallback. And that meant that the structures, because this is retrospective, throughout history, they talk about that made it unlikely that these two teams were in the final, are entrenched by this narrative. So if you do weigh that highly in this round, and we think it is valuable, you ought glorify hard work. Moving on then, what did we tell you participation looked like? They said that people get motivated to participate, and this has good impacts. Notice that for them to access their impacts, they needed to prove that this meant people didn't participate at all, which is to say, if they weren't going to learn the skills, they needed to say people just wouldn't do it in the first place. We gave you a couple of reasons why this just wasn't true. One, because there are just other incentives to win, that you do want that financial reward, or that it advances your career and you like doing the sport more and more. But secondly, because you just start off due to enjoying it, and you want to keep going further because it's something that you love. So the question here is not whether people participate, but how and in what faith they do that. So what this means is, if there are some people who you think participate solely with the motivation of winning, those are the people who are most likely to fall into Mia's argument. The people who are likely to cheat, to go above and beyond and make the competition bad because they idolize. We told you why you always compare yourself to people who are champions, and for 99% of people that is damaging. Their response to this was just assertive, that you're able to get perspective and realize that it's unlikely to be you. But the problem is here, we told you why media shows you champions all around you, why champions are much more vocal and much more present in your life, that you always know there's a chance, and if you're pushed forward by being that champion, you feel bad every time you take that loss. And the problem is here, if they wanted to care about people participating, we explained why this meant people would drop out. Because if you always lose in every semi-final, and you know you never get the glory of being a champion, what was the point of your work, and you might as well leave now. That is a path to victory in and of itself, because we tell you that whatever activity it is, whatever field it is corrupted by the desire to win. But additionally, these places get worse because champions are just never held accountable. The assertion to this was just that, don't worry, one, they want to be good. This was about image, not about their active actions. We gave you reasoning as to why you get to a position where everyone treats you like a god. You're likely to act like one. Where you don't have impunity, you're likely to be part of a culture of privilege when you're at the top, which causes you to entrench that power. And what that just means is you can keep a good image with all those fans who care about you, but you can abuse the people at the lower end, and that just means everything becomes a horrible experience. Now, panel, it really isn't the winning it counts, but we would quite like that trophy. Thank you.
This year's WSDC 2024 champions, Team Scotland.